Welcome, Doc. How are you today?
I am doing really well.
Good, good. So, how long ago did you lose your wife?
That was 8 years ago, this past summer. Soraya passed of a rare neurodegenerative condition.
Did she have Parkinson's or was it something else?
She did not. She was 43 when she passed, and the first symptoms started about 18 months prior. We had just bought our first home together. We blended our families. She had three kids. I had two. We even had a maid named Alice, like the Brady Bunch. And we blended our medical practices as well. She was a certified nurse midwife, nurse practitioner. I'm a naturopathic doc, Chinese medicine practitioner. And one day, my office manager, Chelsea, walked in and said, "Hey, doc, Soraya just left the building." I'm like, "Chelsea, what are you talking about? She left the building." Well, she had her white lab jacket on, stethoscope, kind of strolled through midday downtown Portland, Oregon, said goodbye to the patients and started strolling the streets. Now, this was, maybe 2 or 3 months after we had moved into our new house. And I thought, things go missing when you move. And unfortunately, we had a orange Fiesta Wear plate that became kind of the harbinger of some really bad things to happen in the future. We lost this plate, and Soraya could not let it go. She was looking for it, but it wasn't just once or twice. It was multiple times a day. So much so it became fodder for the kids and I around the dinner table. And I thought, okay, there's stress. We just moved, maybe perimenopause, maybe there was mold in the new house. So we got all of those things checked, and it wasn't any of those. And I knew Soraya was one in a million. Unfortunately, the medical community agreed with me, and the differential was autoimmune encephalitis or Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD. This is mad cow syndrome in people. Unfortunately, it became that. That was what Soraya passed of was CJD. Now, that isn't Parkinson's, but we get into that. Kind of through the process, I went looking for how do you regenerate a brain with these really, as of yet, uncurable conditions on the differential. This, Nate, was a rapid progressing dementia. Soraya lost the ability to speak, to feed herself. After that day in the clinic where she strolled through and said goodbye to her patients, I knew we needed to do something very dramatic. So we closed the practice for 3 months, pushed patients back, and went really full time in looking for solutions. And started quickly talking to world experts on neurodegeneration around the country. And with no known cure for CJD or autoimmune encephalitis, and you can't really diagnose CJD until kind of the end of the ride where they give you a free brain biopsy, which we did. Um, that 18 months of my life, I navigated the grief and the loss and really went to work with my back against the walls, loving husband and out of the box thinker. Okay, how do we recreate, regenerate the brain? And we came across frequency medicine, sound and light. We came across regenerative therapeutics. We came across ozone therapy, high dose vitamin C. Uh, a lot of the therapies that we're using now, 8 years later, I codified in the Eckel protocol for brain regeneration. But at that moment in time, unfortunately, they didn't help Soraya at all. She passed. And that just ripped me open as a human. I thought this is tragic. This woman found a chamber of my heart that I did not know existed. I thought the aliens put her on the planet because it was like my ideal mate on multiple fronts and communication and knowing and experiencing love like that.
Yeah.
I was in my 40s. I didn't even know that that could exist. So the gifts keep on giving after the loss, after the grief. We came through whole, but I knew I didn't want people to go through this on their own. Even as a medical provider, navigating the system, the medical system, this was 8 years ago. It's even more fractured. It's very tough to navigate. So fast forward,
Well, let me
how,
just stop. Let me just stop you
yeah,
real quick. I'm sorry, because
yeah,
there's a lot going on here. So
to unpack there. Yeah,
yeah, there's a lot. So CJD, mad cow disease, a rare degenerative brain disorder. I'm looking at this on Google,
yeah,
caused by abnormal proteins called prions, leading to
yeah.
rapid cognitive decline and ultimately death. Do we know what caused your wife's
So
disease?
no. So prions, that's
Or
where I was
prions?
going.
Okay,
Yep.
prions.
Or prions, it's tomato, tomato.
Okay.
These are, anytime you read about them, they say infectious prions. So these are like senescent cells. If you've had other folks on the podcast talking about, cancer cells, etc. Well, these are misfolded proteins that signal other proteins to misfold. That's how CJD is also called spongiform encephalitis. It's holy brain. Your brain becomes full of holes because these proteins misfold and then you have cellular death. There's a variant variety, which is we don't know what causes it. And then there's a genetic varietal. And so she had the variant varietal, but in the textbook of prionic activity or prionic diseases, it's still in its first edition. You have all of the other neurodegenerative conditions in there. Alpha synuclein is Parkinson's, beta amyloid plaque is Alzheimer's, Lewy body dementia, tau proteins, neurodegenerative condition. So these are all prionic activity, misfolded proteins. Why there's been no major breakthroughs in neurology is no one's talking about these things because they don't have any idea of what to do about them. Now, there is research on how you inactivate prionic activity in animals. So this is scrappy in sheep. This is wasting disease in deer. All species have prionic activity. And so it kind of lit me up on a mission of we must have written this story before we got here because this is too tragic to lose a love like that. And so we've been really helping people with Parkinson's and others looking to regenerate their brains with what we discovered along the way.
Sure. So we don't know. You don't know. You'll never know exactly what caused your wife's disease. That's that's wild and
Yeah,
frustrating
super
and
frustrating.
scary. I mean,
Now,
think about how scary that is. It only affects 1 to 2 million people. It says per year, a year throughout the world. I mean, you're talking about a very small number of people over the
yeah.
grand scheme of 8 billion.
So that said, what I have been asking that question, what causes proteins to misfold? It's $1 trillion question. I've found three major buckets that are at cause for neurodegeneration. This is Alzheimer's, dementia, mild cognitive impairment, Parkinson's, progressive supranuclear palsy, multiple systems atrophy, all of these neurodegenerative states. You've got environmental toxicity, you have trauma, physical, emotional, ancestral trauma, which has made my job much harder, and infections, viruses, bacteria, and I would put mold in the infection category. Those three buckets, one or usually all three, are what cause proteins to misfold.
And your job and your mission has been, how do we get them to not misfold?
How do we turn that process off? How do we correct the underlying imbalances that led to that? And then how do we regenerate? And
Okay.
all three are capable.
Okay. And I want to get to that. But before we do, I do want to peel back a few more layers because that sounds like you want to talk about trauma. That sounds like a traumatic 18 months for not only you, but how about her children and how about her stepchildren
Yeah,
and
yeah,
everyone else around? So,
yeah,
9.5 years ago, give or take, you start seeing this weird turn in her behavior.
yeah,
And then in 18 months, she's gone. I mean, that's
yeah.
absolutely shocking and astonishing. at a high level, take us through the progression. What did you see the deterioration and all those kind of things behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, it was, gosh, at the beginning, it was super subtle, just like some memory issues. Like you think, okay, well, top five stressors, you moved, um, kind of went through divorces, those are stressful. So those, thought, okay, well, maybe we've got hormone changes, maybe there's some influences of environment. For a young 40-year-old woman, these are the things that you look at. When it wasn't those, it's and symptoms of we're staying later at work, right? And she knew like, hey, I have tougher cases. We're seeing very complicated cases because people were flying in from around the country to be seen. They still do. I'm now in Park City, Utah. The So there were reasons, like she had good reasons, and then it just kind of started snowballing to the point of getting lost, wandering out of the house, not knowing where she was, like
Mhm.
really significant dementia,
Yeah. In such a
scary
short
dementia,
time, like that's
super
and,
fast.
and being so young, you don't even think that you don't even probably think to yourself this could be dementia. She's
No, it
42
wasn't
years
even
old
really,
or
no,
yeah.
it wasn't even in the thought process, but because it so rapidly progressed. I took her into the system through, we had Kaiser at the time. They're saying, oh, this is a psychotic break. And I'm like, at that point, I'd been in practice 18 years. I'm like, this is not psychosis. This is not a psychotic break. This is something different. And so being in the medical field and treating, thousands of patients over that time, I kind of had an advantage, I guess, to know like, no, this is not like we're not just going to drug her uh, because that's not the issue here.
Mm.
Um, and so we did have to bring in hospice because I mean, she would wonder. She just lost the ability to communicate, which is
Oh,
so
that's so sad. How old were her
so
children,
heartbreaking.
Dr. Greg? How old were her kids?
They were teenagers. Yeah.
Mm. That had to be tremendously devastating for those
I
kids.
mean, yeah, losing your parent anytime is tough, but especially, as kids. Yeah.
How has that been for you guys? Have you been able to keep in touch with that? What's that like?
Yeah, yeah. The component of their dad remarried, so they've got
Right.
good family support, and it's
Good.
it's still pretty tragic. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And how did you? I mean, like you said, you finally found the love of your life. The second time was a charm, and all of a sudden it was pulled away from you in a very short time.
Yeah.
How
I
did you cope with
definitely
that?
I had some dark nights of the soul, to be frank. I mean, I had a lot of anger, a lot of grief. Um, the component of coming through whole was being able to express the emotions, having a really good social network for support. You know, Writing story, it was kind of, life is trippy, to
It
say
is,
the
isn't it?
least.
It
And
really
it
is.
is.
Yeah.
And, I had written some stories as when I was 10, when my family got divorced. I said I'd never do that to my family. And here I am in a similar situation. Um,
I did
that,
the same thing, Dr. Greg. I thought I would
yeah,
never get divorced when I got married the first time.
yeah,
You never go into a marriage going, well, one day this is going to end. So
yeah,
like
no,
that's
yeah,
not what you
never.
sign up to do.
No.
But some things sometimes life happens and things
Life
happen.
happens and you've got to listen to your heart. And so I guess I've been blessed with that of listening to my emperor and my heart and, being able to express self. I have a community. We do alchemical fire circles that I publicly wept in
Mm.
front of 100 people. Uh, that was cathartic. It was healing. It was supportive. It was amazing to have a community like that where I could just uh, really experience the depths of the
You
tragedy,
could release. You could release.
and be witnessed in it.
Yeah.
That was so healing and really transformed. And it was kind of it's an alchemical process for emotion. So, you know, totally sober expression of loss and to be witnessed. And for a while there, I was kind of a grief ambassador, which I did not like that role. But because I was so open with the loss and going through that transition, people would share their losses and their griefs. And, you know, while I'm still open to that, I'm able to now just speak to the heart of the matter because we don't know how long we're on the planet. I have such deep gratitude and love for humanity, other humans, our planet, like the miracle of life, of these bodies of health that really, you know, I could have taken that and become a drug addict and just numbed out or numbed with substances. But I just felt like, no, this is a bigger mission of a wake up call for me to really go for it. Because we don't know how long we're on the planet, and I've got to, you know, speak my truth and help people in service. That's why I got into medicine. So
Yep.
the, you know, navigating it, I used all of my tools. I got pretty woo-woo, to be honest, Nate. I went out there. It ripped me open as a human and reinstated my faith in unity consciousness of all is one. We're pretending to be separate in this reality, and we're all like beautiful expressions of life. And we need to really honor that and honor the journey because this curriculum is tough. It's a tough curriculum down here.
It sure is. And that was is what led you to this brain regen, brainregen.com, guys. We've linked it in the show notes. If you want to learn more about what we're Dr. Greg's company here and his approach. You're specializing in neurodegenerative diseases, but you're really focused on Parkinson's. Is that correct?
Yeah, right now that was the deep vertical line that we're digging deep for people with Parkinson's. We have people around the globe flying in. Recently, I've got my second book on the topic. It's called Defying Parkinson's.
There it is.
I named it Cutting Edge Therapies That Outperform Standard Neurologic Treatments. So a little bit, little edgy, but I really, we have one of the largest Parkinson's communities of people making different choices to get different outcomes. And we have over 2,000 folks in our online coaching program that folks have come through our program to show like, hey, we're actually getting better. So
And
I'm
what's the
not
name of
saying
that book
cure.
again?
It's called Defying Parkinson's.
Defying Parkinson's. We'll make sure we get that linked in the show notes as well here, Greg.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
what I have in there, you know, if you don't have Parkinson's, you probably know someone with Parkinson's, but this is also really a way to think about your brain health. So I have an upcoming book next year. Kind of the placeholder title is Your Brain Younger to create more of a framework for more people, because I think a lot of these diagnoses, there's not a lot of hope. There's actually a lot of despair, a lot of fear, but we're seeing just miraculous things happen clinically with folks. And I have some patients we published in 2025, case series of 2 people that have no evidence of disease process. They're off of their drugs. They got their lives back, and we have more outcomes-based research where we want to be really
So
transparent
are
with
you
our data.
suggesting that you're reversing potentially Parkinson's?
Yeah, so we have a patient with a DAT scan. This is a radioactive dye uptake to the substantia nigra, the end stage of the disease process for Parkinson's. Before our treatment through Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, she had actually 2, showed consistent with Parkinson's. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's on the Parkinson's medications. They were helping her. She had that diagnosis for a decade. Post our treatments, they did a repeat DAT scan, radioactive dye, showing her substantia nigra had healed consistent with her age. Better yet, she had no symptoms of the disease and she was off all of her drugs.
And did she have
So,
symptoms prior to where she was losing her ability to move muscles
yes,
and all? And that came back, her ability to all of her limbs and her movements.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So that's not supposed to be possible in the Western mind. So, the neurologist in their myopic view says, well, that can't happen. So I must have misdiagnosed you. But she was clearly diagnosed for a decade with imaging, with symptomatology, and response to medication. So it's a new paradigm where, if your provider can't see you healed, well, there's no way that you're going to get there. So I say I do a lot of nothing all day, Nate. So it was Holly, it was her innate intelligence, it was the information put into her body that healed. I can't do the work for people. So it is a different approach, but that's what has to happen. If you want to get a different result, you got to make different choices.
And you say that there's a misconception where it's all focused on dopamine. Is that correct?
That is correct. So I actually am putting forth, and it's very controversial, but I don't think Parkinson's is a neurologic disorder. So James Parkinson's created the diagnosis with, you opened up the brain, said, oh, this is the part of the brain that is affected with Parkinson's disease. That is the end stage of a disease process. So everybody focused on that little gland with dopamine and dopaminergic receptors is missing 10, 20, 30 years prior of the imbalances that led to the destruction of the substantia nigra. So if we move upstream, and we are showing this in a functional integrative medicine database, I actually created, it's called Prometheus AI, taken 25 years of my clinical records and have created a really sound database for research to get better, faster, more results for more people. I think as that database grows, people will vote with their information. They're going to say, I want to be in Eckel's database because they're getting better results than Western Med. So with the focus on just neurologic function, they're missing all of these upstream issues, as the first question is, why do proteins misfold? So you have to uncover the terrain. So this is very naturopathic in thinking, but our reductionist medical model in the West has given us a really just shitty healthcare system, right? Clearly, we're not just pieces and parts. The majestic being of is so complex, our health and the way our body functions, that we really need to take better care and have a more full systems approach, because all of the systems are interconnected.
Fascinating. So tell us at a high level, what exactly is the Eckel protocol? What are you doing?
Yeah, so we have a detect, a correct, and a thrive phase. So everyone misses the detect phase. Everyone skips to correct. What can I take, doc? What should I do? But if you don't uncover the terrain in environmental toxicity, in traumas, and then in infections, you miss the boat. We've discovered 5 subtypes in Parkinson's. That's what I put in Defying Parkinson's. There's 5 clusters of patients that we've seen that have 5 different treatment protocols because it's not the same thing. So you've got to detect. So we rule out heavy metals. Top 4 that I see: arsenic, cadmium, mercury, and lead. But it could be other metals. It could be pesticides. There's links between paraquat and Parkinson's, trichloroethylene (TCE) and Parkinson's, glyphosate and Parkinson's. There are environmental toxins that cause proteins to misfold. That starts the cascade of the alpha-synuclein, or misfolded proteins. So that's number one. You got to rule those things in or out.
Mhm.
Number 2, we address traumas. No one gets out of here alive. When you look at the ACE scores, the adverse childhood experiences in North America specifically, they show when you have a higher ACE score, which is predominantly everyone, has trauma from growing up. There's also trauma from our ancestral lineages. So there's research on what happened to your great, 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 great grandmother that created epigenetic change that then is expressing itself genetically or in your genome now. Now, that's an epigenetic change, not just genetics, but it's ancestral trauma. We've been on the planet for longer. We need to at least have that understanding at the table as we're treating people, because if their limbic system is lit up and they're in a sympathetic fight or flight stress response, they're not going to be able to heal. Their body, their receptor isn't going to receive the signals that we're sending. Then we rule out, it's called molecular mimicry. And you can go on PubMed and put in molecular mimicry and whatever condition you have. And then you see, oh, there's cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr virus, herpes simplex virus that can mimic Parkinsonism issues. There are bacterial infections that cause proteins to misfold. And then mold and mycotoxins rewire the immune system. Over half the buildings in North America have some mold damage. And so there, if you have the genetic platform with specific HLA subtypes, you may be more susceptible to mold exposure, mycotoxin rewiring of your immune system. So all three of those don't get looked at in a traditional neurological practice. In rare functional integrative medicine practices, are they putting that all together? And then even rarer does someone have so many cases and a protocol for tracking what the intervention is. So I'm spending a lot of time on detect phase because I think that is overlooked. Of you got to turn those buckets over, and that goes for all memory issues, mind issues, performance issues. We even have a entrepreneurial Thrive program because we show people with significant disability degeneration getting their lives back. Well, it works on the Olympians that we treat here in Park City. They shave seconds off their time, and that's the difference between being a gold medalist and not being on the podium. So we have a very wide practice on brain health here. So
Sure.
that's detect. Then we have a week long, what I call brain camp, where we're frequency forward. So, as I said, I got a little woo through this process, but I actually am lecturing to other providers for continuing medical education on neuroregeneration at the speed of light. I gave a talk 4 years ago to the age management medical group, and this is like really cutting edge doctors, providers in the US, actually worldwide. And they were a little hesitant to have this conversation or talk. And they said, okay, if you can show us 5 references in the last 5 years on light therapy for neuroregeneration. I said, okay, yeah, not only can I show you 5, I'm going to show you 200. And there's probably about 700 to 1,000 papers on this topic in the research. It's just you're reading the wrong journals, right? We just saw, 40 hertz sound and light frequency is actually showing benefit for people with Alzheimer's. So it's not just Dr. Greg in Park City, Utah making this up. There's actually really good research. There's just no one peddling that in the medical system because you can't really make money on that,
Mhm.
unfortunately. So we do laser therapy, we do sound baths, putting people into theta wave kind of meditative states to drop in their totally healed, totally whole future self, pulling that person to themselves. So really bringing a quantum understanding of reality into therapeutic encounters, taking time out of the equation. Well, what does that look like? Well, we have people out of our procedure room haven't been able to smell for 15 years, get their sense of smell back. Memory returning, couldn't do 1+1 math, then able to rattle off multiplication factors in a time frame where you're kind of like, did that really just happen here? Because you think, oh, in Newtonian physics, you got to go on the time frame. It just is, you get the response like a reset button.
Wow. That's phenomenal. And then you got Thrive as your final. So you
Thrive is
got,
the final, right? So
yeah.
then the question becomes, I don't want this tremor. I don't want this disease process. It's more, how good can it get? And it's, what gets measured gets changed. So you got to keep your eye on those three big buckets at the top to make sure nothing new is in there. Like sometimes people get into a health kick, they start eating a lot of canned tuna. Well, it's laden with mercury, and then they get mercury toxic that then damages their brain. So, you got to keep your eyes on the target, a very good beyond just plasma serum testing or blood work. We do microbiome testing, we do urine testing. So you want to look at a lot of different angles for health. So that serial monitoring with then optimization going forward on Thrive.
This is fascinating stuff. I've got about a minute or two left. Guys, check out the link. If you know anyone that's suffering from Parkinson's or neurodegeneration, click the link here. You may learn something. You may want to reach out to Dr. Greg and his team. Michael J. Fox, I remember as a kid, he really made Parkinson's famous, at least in my
Yeah,
generation growing up.
yeah.
And he's had it since 1991, 35 years. Is that something, Greg? He's been
That
living with
is
Parkinson's disease. We see him. He can't really, he has no control of his physical functions. I just wonder what your thoughts are. I wonder what, like, if you were to work with someone like him, is there any chance of recovery, or is it at some point, is it too late, too late?
I have seen significantly disabled patients like can't get dressed anymore, stop walking because they're falling so much. So can't get dressed anymore because their tremors are so bad. One patient in particular comes to mind, Cindy. She was disabled on her couch, and she called me one day from a park saying, Dr. Eckel, you'll never guess what. And I don't like getting calls like that, Nate, because you don't know which way that's going to go. Um, I said, all right, Cindy, what's going on? She said, my husband said, slow down walking. I'm walking too fast. I said, wow, when is the last time he ever said anything like that to you? And she said, it's been a decade. So I never close the door on what the innate intelligence can do. So we've been trying to work with Michael J. Fox, where we are up for a grant to study the Eckel protocol through the Michael J. Fox Foundation. So fingers crossed, next time we talk, hopefully that's well underway. But a lot of times in the foundations, they're looking for drug or surgical interventions, and they're looking at it reductionist wise. So one component, he was a young Parkinson's patient. I think that actually developed on a movie set when he was in British Columbia, in Vancouver, British Columbia, filming the Time movie,
Back
right?
to the Future?
Yeah, Back to the Future. And there
Wow.
were several members from that crew that developed Parkinson's at a young age. And I don't know that
Wow.
they've ever looked at that, but I think that would be very interesting to look at what was on that set or in that area that may have been the environmental toxin smoking gun for him.
Oh, that's incredible. And that's terrifying. I've never heard that before. That's terrifying. I mean, just being exposed to something for a period of time could completely change your life forever.
Well,
Uh,
this happens. Camp Lejeune, tons of vets coming out of Camp Lejeune, they had TCE, trichloroethylene, in the water. Huge cases of cancer and Parkinson's disease off that base.
hey, let's do this again, Dr. Greg. And next time, hopefully you'll have some news to share, like you said, on Michael J. Fox and some other uh, updates and upgrades on everything you're doing and helping people. Really great finally doing this and connecting with you.
Thank you for helping me get the word out.